I thanked her. No, I gushed. I admit it. I was about to hang up when she said, Mr. Haskell, there is one condition. She never called me Sam ever in our relationship. It was always Mr. Haskell. I want you standing on the red carpet when I arrive. You'll walk me into the theater, stay in the green room with me until it's time for me to present Mr. Wallace his award. She didn't have to ask me twice. To get what she wanted, the company of this funny young agent with the heavy Southern accent who was both earnest and eager, I guess I was somehow different from other people who had made business calls to her. She ultimately gave me what I wanted as well, her presence at the American Movie Awards. Naturally, David Frost was overjoyed, and he told everyone at NBC and William Morris how the kid called Betty Davis and convinced her to be on the show. Can you believe it? Roger Moore hosted the show, and my client Debbie Allen, along with the cast of her television show Fame, danced down Hollywood Boulevard and burst into the theater to complete their production number. Dudley Moore, Debbie Reynolds, Jane Fonda, Liza Minnelli, and Ginger Rogers were all there as well. David Frost was thrilled. It was a great moment for me. I'd proven myself to my clients and somehow made Ms. Davis happy to help me. A month later, I got an invitation to Betty Davis's 74th birthday party. The party started at 7 p.m. at Miss Davis's penthouse apartment on Havenhurst Drive in Hollywood. I arrived at 6:45. I was not going to be late. I arrived at 6:45 and I drove around the block until 6:55. Then I parked, rode the elevator up, rang the doorbell, and Miss Davis answered the door herself. Well, Mr. Haskell, she said, how perfectly prompt you are. She asked me in and then turned to her assistant, Catherine, and said, that will be $10. Playing off my quizzical look, she explained, I bet, Catherine, that you would be the first to arrive. Miss Davis took me on a tour of her beautifully appointed apartment. Everyone else arrived fashionably late, which meant that I had the hostess all to myself for almost half an hour. In her living room, Miss Davis showed me a portrait of herself that hung over the mantel. It had been fashioned after her character Margot Channing in the Academy Award-winning film All About Eve. Now that's the way I want to be remembered, she said. She also showed me both of her Oscars displayed prominently in her den, and we discussed her disappointment at not being cast to play Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. I couldn't believe she was telling these things to me. It was incredible. When Mary and I married the following December, Miss Davis sent us a congratulatory note, and I realized yet again how wrong my father and others had been to think that I'd thrown my life away by moving to Hollywood. I was so happy, both to be making good impressions and to be befriending the Hollywood stars of my childhood dreams.
Sam, of course, is an extraordinary man and has this unusual understanding of relationships. And I had the privilege of attending a couple of events in California honoring him. And as a part of that, I had opportunities to talk to stars represented by Sam Haskell. To the person, those people told me, Sam is unlike any other Hollywood show business representative we've ever known. He's genuine, he's sincere, he represents your interests. You know that he is your person and he is your agent. And that sort of reflects, I think, the way Sam feels about his mother and Mississippi and Amory and Ole Miss and all of these relationships that he has. And that is that it's a total commitment from Sam. And so at Ole Miss, he has been willing to step forward and lead in just a variety of ways. And when I say Sam, I really mean Sam and Mary, because they are a duo. They've been married a lot of years, and they call each other love. Love, will you do this? Or love, will you do that? Well, thank you, love. And it's the sweetest kind of relationship.
Well, first of all, Sam was my very first date in college. And there's something about marrying your first sweetheart. But we've been together since 1976, and we can finish each other's sentences for each other, and we understand each other's hearts and other's passions. I think when that's part of your relationship, there is an ability to come alongside and support in a way kind of unlike any other.
At the start of my senior year at Ole Miss, I was sitting on the steps of College Hill Presbyterian Church in Oxford with my fraternity brothers, checking out all the new sorority pledges when I saw a stunning girl walk by. Her name was Mary Donnelly. She was a freshman from Beaumont, Texas, who had pledged Chi Omega sorority. My friends Anna Catherine Clark and Susan Noble had introduced us. Coincidentally, in addition to being in music theory class together, we had both auditioned and subsequently been asked to join the university song and dance troupe known as The Group, which traveled around the Southeast as part of the university's recruitment program. We did musical numbers and made speeches about Ole Miss. We sang at inaugurations and conventions. Mary had an incredible voice. Mary really seemed to know who she was. Her sense of self-possession was irresistible. I asked her to the Ole Miss football game on September 17, 1976, our first date. After that weekend, I called my mother and said, "I've met the girl I'm going to marry." And we did in 1982. I made this vow even though I'd once told my mother in my typical grand planning fashion that I was determined to marry a Miss Mississippi one day. Fortunately, my mother was happy for me and she didn't remind me of that old promise. I had, however, always loved beauty pageants. They made ordinary girls into American princesses. I had attended the Miss Mississippi pageant for the first time when I was 15 because my good friend Frank Page's sister Sarah was Miss Amory. My mother drove me and my buddy Mike Burgess to Vicksburg to hang out with Frank and cheer Sarah on. By the time I was a high school senior, I had called the pageant's producer, Don Barnes, and talked my way into the Miss Mississippi chorus. I would sing backup in the pageant productions over the next several summers. That's where I met Patton Briggs Hobson, who ran the Miss Mississippi pageant, and Bill and Sarah Foster, who ran the local Miss Mississippi State University pageant. In September of 1974, I was invited by the Fosters to attend the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City with them as a Mississippi delegate. Two future clients were competing at Miss America that year, writer-producer Pam Long as Miss Alabama and actress Delta Burke as Miss Florida. All of this prepared me for a 3-year run directing the Miss University of Mississippi pageant at Ole Miss while I was a student there. It was a tough job, but someone had to go to all the fraternities and sororities and dormitories and get them to put up beautiful and talented girls to compete. I'd become the Burt Parks of Ole Miss. The first year I directed the Miss University pageant, the winner, Becky Moore from Memphis, was second runner-up to Miss Mississippi. And the second year I directed it, the winner, Nancy White from Gulfport, was first runner-up to Miss Mississippi. And Nancy White's standing right back here. When the Miss University pageant rolled around during my senior year, I recruited Ole Miss co-eds who had been runners-up in their home state pageants the summer before. It was my final year to direct the Ole Miss pageant, and I was determined that Miss University had to win Miss Mississippi. Mary and I had been dating for 5 months, so I told her, I'm going to be completely buried in this the entire month of January and most of February. Then just thinking aloud, I said, you ought to enter. Mary was beautiful and had a great voice, so I figured she'd get in the top 10, and it would help make her freshman year memorable. Her Chi Omega sisters agreed. To my great surprise, and beating all odds, Mary Donnelly won the title of Miss University of Mississippi 1977. Then she won Miss Mississippi and was on her way to the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City. And this Miss Mississippi was my Miss Mississippi. That's when I started to worry. Not about myself, but about Mary. She was still an 18-year-old, non-pageant type girl from Texas who usually wore a ponytail, cowboy boots, and jeans. Though she was completely at ease with who she was, I became obsessed with making her fit the pageant mold. With Miss America in our sights, I was determined to help the Hobsons transform her into a winner. I wanted to make sure she did everything right and set out to replace the Mary I knew and loved with my vision of who I thought she should be. Instead of learning from how my father had treated me, I'd forgotten that while it's okay to be an example to others, you have no business trying to make them into what you want them to be. One evening, Mary wasn't wearing makeup when I picked her up for a date. I said, you can't come out here with no makeup on. You're Miss Mississippi. I patiently lectured her that people would judge her for not being who they expected her to be. But Mary would have none of it. She didn't want to tease her hair and wear all that makeup just to go to Captain D's or Pizza Hut. And she let me know in no uncertain terms, and by the way, that's all we had when I was here was Captain D's and Pizza Hut. And she let me know in no uncertain terms that while she appreciated my concern, she could take care of herself. Luckily, my ears were open. I promised to do better. Miss Ohio won the Miss America pageant that year, and I'm still not over it.